Jeremy Powell. Jeremy is an experienced radio and podcast producer who has spent many years working in Atlanta. He is the host of GPB's Peach Jam podcast. He creates episodes that really transcend genre and boundaries, offering listeners an immersive journey into the lives and sounds of Georgia's contemporary musicians. The podcast serves as a compelling platform, spotlighting an eclectic array of artists and genres, providing an insider's perspective into the lives and creative processes of the state's musical talents. Mr. Powell graduated from Darlington School in Rome, Georgia, and he is an avid music fan and vinyl collector. Everyone help me please in welcoming Jeremy Powell.
Good afternoon. Oh, I didn't expect that. That's awesome. Thank you. I will first say that I am a radio person by trade. I'm not a presenter by trade, so I will do my absolute best. But this is Georgia's music tradition. Georgia has a long and storied tradition of great music, and our state continues to be the home to amazing musicians. And here are some artists that you probably recognize. Outkast, B-52s, the Allman Brothers, REM, James Brown, Alan Jackson, Zach Brown, Sugarland, Little Richard, Gladys Knight, Seven Dust, Marvelous 3, Usher, Ludacris. They're all from Georgia. And who am I? I'm Jeremy Powell. I'm the senior podcast producer at Georgia Public Broadcasting. I'm the host and producer of GPB's Peach Jam TV show and podcast. I'm a former morning radio show producer. I worked at a lot of stations here in Atlanta, including 99X, Dave FM, B98.5, and Kicks 101.5. I have been around. And because of this experience, I've become a big fan of music, especially music that is born and bred here in Georgia, and musicians who choose to live here in Georgia. So the first thing we'll start with is what you can expect from this presentation. Well, what not to expect from this presentation. I'm not going to give you a fully detailed history of music in Georgia from 1788 to today. That would take too long. I'm not going to give you a complete history of the Athens and or the Macon music scenes. Both of those are amazing. They're incredible. They've changed the world, and they deserve a Ken Burns documentary on PBS. I cannot give you a deep dive into the meaning of the song Rock Lobster. And I'm not going to give you a chronological history of Ludacris's transformation from a radio personality to chart-topping rapper to street racing superhero movie star in the Fast and Furious series. Did anybody know that Ludacris was a radio personality here in Atlanta? He was. Chris Lubba. I also don't have any sort of knowledge on how to make a trap beat, so if you're here for that, you're in the wrong room. What you can expect is I have some brief overviews of some artists and bands that you know from Georgia, like those photos that we saw. And some artists and bands that you may not have known are from Georgia. And then I want to introduce you to some people who are carrying on a great legacy of music from the Peach State. Let's start with Southern rock. When you think of Southern rock and roll, especially Southern rock and roll from Georgia, who is it that comes to mind? Who's the very first band? The Allman Brothers Band. And they had so many great albums. There are entire books and documentaries and museums dedicated to or that heavily feature the Allman Brothers Band. One in particular that I recommend is Rock and Roll President, Jimmy Carter, Rock and Roll President. If you have not seen that, it is fantastic. He goes into great detail of his work with the Allman Brothers coming to the mansion here in Georgia, coming to the White House, playing shows. He talks about the Allman Brothers and his son doing some illicit activities on top of the White House. It's fantastic. It really is great. So the Allman Brothers, their influence obviously reaches far and wide. It was the very first thing you thought of when I mentioned Southern rock from Georgia. As for artists from Georgia, Travis Tritt, the country rock artist, is heavily influenced by that Southern rock and roll. He was a 90s country star. He's a Marietta native. He's a graduate of Sprayberry High School, and he brought the Southern rock sound and attitude to the 90s era outlaw country movement that was happening. Driving and Crying. They were formed in 1985, and they still play to this day. In fact, I just got an email that tickets are going on sale for them playing at the Capitol Theater and at the Buckhead Theater. Driving and Crying are Southern rock local legends, so they are not well known outside of the South. But here in the South, especially in Georgia, they are a big deal. And I got a chance to talk to their frontman, Kevin Kinney, about that fact. During that interview, Kevin Kinney also told me about how when he moved here in 1982, he lived in a trailer park in Kennesaw, and his very first job was helping build the Roswell sewage plant. And fascinating. I don't want to play that again. There you go. And another current Southern rock band from Georgia, Blackberry Smoke. They've been active since 2000. They have 4 top 5 albums on the US country charts, which is interesting about how Southern rock and country music really kind of cross over, and there's blurred lines there as to what is what, especially when you look back. They have over 200 million streams on Spotify, and they're a band that not everybody knows. They're a band that you kind of have to be in the know to know who they are. But if you're a fan of Southern rock, Blackberry Smoke is definitely somebody to look into. Another one is the Georgia Thunderbolts. They're a relatively young band. They're a group of what I call them kids, because the oldest one's like 26. Some of them are 23. And I'm partial to them because they're from my hometown of Rome, Georgia. They formed in 2015 there in Rome while they were still in high school. And this is what they look like and sound like. You can hear the Southern rock influence. You can hear that Allman Brothers, Leonard Skinner, Marshall Tucker type influence. And they look like they walked out in 1973. Like they really do. They're good dudes. They're really nice, really humble, um, and super talented. And for me as a music fan, it's interesting how that sound has transcended time. I mean, we're talking about people who are kids, they're young men now, who are emulating music that's 50 years old or more. Now, the big one, when you think Georgia, and this is the one that surprised me, and I don't want to play you again. Blues and soul music in Georgia. Blues and soul music, when I was putting together a list of people to be included on this, people who were from Georgia, people who lived in Georgia, it surprised me how long this list is. And I know I left people out. I'm sure there are names on this list that, or there's names that you know should have been on it and they're not. But James Brown, Peebo Bryson, Ray Charles, Tinsley Ellis, Gladys Knight, Blind Willie McTell, Otis Redding, CeeLo Green, Usher, Janelle Monáe, Monica, Kelly Rowland. That's just a handful of the people that are from here in Georgia. And you can look at this list and see that this crosses generations and the influences are still felt today. But let's talk about some you may or may not know. Victoria Monet. So she's from Atlanta, and she took the music world by storm this year. Her album that was released in 2023, it's Grammy nominated, is called Jaguar 2. It's number 9 on the Rolling Stone list of the 100 best albums of last year. Number 5 on Billboard's staff list of the 50 best albums of 2023. When you think about the staff at Billboard magazine, how many records are they listening to? And there's a lady from Atlanta whose album is number 5 on that list. It's definitely worth checking out if you like R&B. Another young man named Kian Martin. I got a chance to talk to him, and he is incredible. He's a recipient of the Michael Jackson Scholarship to Morehouse College. That is a full ride scholarship for students interested in music and performers. And he was given a college education because of his talent. He's an internationally touring artist and a humble and super nice guy. And then there's Eddie Ninevolt. Eddie Ninevolt is an enigma. He's from McDonough, Georgia. He is another kid. He just turned 27. He is from another time. His music is what he calls Southern soul. When I got a chance to talk to him, his latest album, Capricorn, debuted at number 1 on the Billboard Blues charts. And this was February of last year. He walks and talks like he is from another time. And he's one of those artists that if you don't know where to look or how to dig, you'll miss him. You won't find him. This is a little bit of Eddie Ninevolt. His album Capricorn, that debuted at the top of the Billboard Blues charts last year, was recorded at Capricorn Studios in Macon, which is the studio that made the Allman Brothers famous. It all seems to come together. It all connects. And you absolutely can't get away from it. I would implore you to Google Eddie 9-Volt, look him up, and hear how that guy is timeless. But it's not just Southern rock and roll in Georgia. If I can get this to click correctly. Yeah. There's hip hop too. In fact, Atlanta and the word hip hop are basically synonymous. They are. Don't get ahead of me. Ludacris, T.I., Outkast, Killer Mike, Future, Goody Mob, Gucci Mane, Jermaine Dupri, Little John, Pastor Troy, Black. That's a name you might not recognize. Black is a new guy. He's young. And he's a Grammy-nominated artist. He's a platinum-selling artist. And last year, for 2023, former President Obama listed one of his songs on his top songs of 2023. He's a young rapper from Atlanta. Another one is PBD Gray. And the PBD stands for plant-based dripping. This man is interesting. He was a fun interview, a great guy to talk to, a dedicated father, family man. And he went viral with a freestyle rap on YouTube talking about a vegan Thanksgiving. And that really kind of shot him into an area of being known. And so he's using this platform that he has to encourage healthy eating in the Black community. That's PBD Gray. Oh, wait, that's PBD Gray. And here's a little bit of him talking about it. That to me was such an interesting comment, that he feels like he's fighting oppression by eating healthy. And so he went on to talk about red line laws and the different types of businesses that are allowed in certain areas of urban cities, and how it, in his view, it keeps certain communities down. absolutely fascinating. And this is a guy born out of the hip hop scene here in Atlanta. He lived in Baltimore, and he said that the open mics where they would go and rap and do freestyles and try to break into the music scene in Baltimore, they weren't supportive. But when he came to Atlanta, people were supportive. They could compete. They could have a good time going at each other if they're doing a rap battle, whatever they're doing. But at the end of the day, everybody was supportive in Atlanta. And he said that's the difference of the Atlanta hip hop scene versus anywhere else in the country, is that it's far more a community. And that's something because of the history we have here and because of the names that have come out of here and the people that work here and the people that live here and the people that frequent that scene. It's far more of a family. And now let's talk about country music, because you can't mention Georgia without country music. Again, there's Travis Tritt. We mentioned him earlier. He definitely walks that line between Southern rock and country music. Trisha Yearwood's from Georgia. Alan Jackson, of course. Jerry Reed, the Snowman's from Georgia. Whispering Bill Anderson, Grand Ole Opry, just native. If you go to the Grand Ole Opry, you're probably going to see Bill Anderson. Billy Joe Royal, Lauren Elena, Jason Aldean, Zach Brown, Luke Bryan, Brantley Gilbert, Sam Hunt. The Georgia music scene for country music, those roots run deep. Sugarland. I have a CD from when I worked at 99X. I have a Christmas CD with Sugarland singing on it. They were just a local band. Cole Swindell, you'll see him at a Braves game. But there's other Georgia country music artists as well. Brent Cobb is phenomenal. Brent Cobb is an Americana country artist. He is a singer-songwriter country artist, a storyteller. He's from Americus. One of his albums is called Providence Canyon, named after Providence Canyon over near Columbus. He's Grammy nominated. He tours with Chris Stapleton and Luke Combs. He's been on Chris Stapleton's All-American Roadshow tour multiple times, multiple stops, and he opens for Luke Combs as well. And he's a name that you may not know if you don't know where to look and how to find it. Another one's a man named Pony Bradshaw. Pony Bradshaw is, in my opinion, the poet laureate of Murray County, Georgia. He is an absolute genius. He might be the smartest person I've ever met. He started singing and writing songs in his 30s. He didn't learn to play guitar until he was 25. He's only 43 now. He has more than 50 million streams on Spotify. He was profiled by Rolling Stone. And here's a little bit of Pony Bradshaw. I like him a lot. I'm a big fan. When I started Peace Jam, he was somebody that I wanted to get on the show simply because I was a fan. So I had to do my best not to geek out about talking to him. But an incredible artist. If you enjoy storytelling, intelligent Americana singer-songwriter music, look up Pony Bradshaw. And again, you can hear the influence from those names that we see that are from Georgia. You can hear that influence in Pony's music. And then there's the rock and roll and the alt rock scene. And another huge list of people from Georgia, especially Athens with the B-52s and REM. And then there's Sean Mullins, the Marvelous Three, Seven Dust, Mastodon, Attila, Jackal, Manchester Orchestra. Those are names you may or may not recognize, but they're all from Georgia and they're huge stars in their own universe. Mastodon just went on a huge international world tour. Attila sells out heavy metal festivals in Europe all the time, and they're from Georgia. Jackal's lead singer plays a chainsaw, and it's fascinating. It's incredible. Manchester Orchestra is one of the hottest names in alternative rock right now. They're from Alpharetta. Marvelous Three just played 3 sold-out nights at the Tabernacle back in the fall for a reunion tour. They hadn't been together in, I think, 20 years. They sold out 3 nights at the Tabernacle. It was crazy. But there's 2 big ones on this list right here, and I know that there's plenty missing from this list. Oh, Collective Soul, forgot them. They're from Stockbridge, right up the road. But the 2 big ones staring us in the face are definitely the B-52s and REM. And if you're looking for a direct line from the B-52s to something that's that weird alt rock and roll, because that's what they were, they didn't fit a genre, but they fit in every genre. Look for Sarah and the Safe Word. Sarah and the Safe Word are a band from Atlanta, and they play cabaret-inspired emo goth rock. No, I don't know what that is. It's fun. I've listened to it, and it's very fun, but it is a direct line from the B-52s to now. And the B-52s debut album, 1979, I think. They played all through the 80s, 90s, and now, I mean, they just had their reunion tour or their farewell tour last year, 2022, I think, at the Fox. Sarah and the Safe Word played at Warped Tour, which is a humongous festival that travels, and they're praised as LGBT advocates. And then there's REM. So REM doesn't play anymore. REM from Athens, they deserve their own books and documentaries and Ken Burns' big specials. But there are members of REM that are still playing and still active. Bill Berry, the drummer, he's currently in a band called the Bad Ends. So it's an Athens and Atlanta supergroup with the lead singer of another Atlanta alt-rock band called 5/8. Their album, the Bad Ends album, was critically acclaimed. It didn't really do anything on the charts, but music critics from Billboard and Rolling Stone and things of that nature all praised it. Mike Mills from REM has a group called the Baseball Project with Steve Wynn of the Dream Syndicate and also Peter Buck, where they sing songs about baseball. It is excellent. If you are a baseball fan, they take old baseball legends and baseball stories and they turn them into songs that sound a little bit like REM, and they're fun. And then Peter Buck is also in a group called Arthur Buck with singer-songwriter Joseph Arthur. And then another band called Filthy Friends, which is an alt-rock supergroup with the lead singer of Sleater Kinney. So the members of REM are still out there. They're still doing things. And they've been doing it for a long, 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 long time. Back at the list, we'll take a look at some more people that these bands that are on this list, and again, it's a very incomplete list, are also inspiring. And here's a band on your top right, Gringo Star. Gringo Star came in and talked to me. They're a working class band. They've been grinding it out for 20 years, and they find a lot of success in Europe. They have kind of a 50s surf kind of feel to them sometimes, and then they move into some more alternative rock. And while they play good shows here in Atlanta and sell well, they find most of their success in Europe, which to me I find very interesting, that we are touching the world, that Georgia has that kind of effect, that people in small towns in Belgium or Poland or Germany are going to see bands that are from right up the road from us. And then there's Tetrarch. They're here on the lower left. The woman in the front, her name is Diamond Rowe. Diamond is considered one of the top 10 guitarists in the world, period. They are very heavy metal. They rock really, really hard. And they're from here in Atlanta, and on list of great guitarists, you will find her name every single time. And then there's a man I got to talk to named Lloyd Buchanan. Lloyd Buchanan is interesting because his day job, he has multiple day jobs. One of his day jobs on Sundays is he's a music minister at a missionary Baptist church in Columbus, Georgia. But Lloyd is also the in-demand rock and roll organist. Bands come from overseas to record with him in Columbus, Georgia. Musicians fly him to Nashville to work for 6 days in the studio, and then he flies home on Sunday to be at church. He told me a story about people recognizing him from CBS Sunday Morning and the interviews he did while he's playing the organ at church. He's played on the Grammy stage. He plays with Alabama Shakes and their lead singer, Brittany Howard. He plays with The Heavy. That's a band from London. He told me a story about playing on the BBC on Jules Holland with Tom Jones. Tom Jones heard him playing the organ and said, "I want you to play with me." And he ended up playing a full set with Tom Jones simply because he was doing what he does. And again, he does this all from Columbus, Georgia. He does it as an advocate of Columbus, Georgia. He encourages musicians to come there to record and come there and be a part of that scene. And here's a little bit of what Lloyd Buchanan sounds like. I could have put the whole song. I would listen to it all day. I really enjoy Lloyd Buchanan, and he is such an interesting character because he is humble, he's down to earth, and as you can see, he's incredibly talented. And when he came in to record at the studios, those videos are all recorded at the GPB studios in Midtown. When he came in to record there, he took us to church. It was 7:30 on I think Tuesday or Wednesday night, and we were jamming. I want to move on. Again, this is not a full and complete history. of Georgia music that requires multiple hours and lots of research that is above my pay grade. But it is an interesting overview of what kind of history we have here, what kind of names are from here and call the Peach State home, and then what the present and the future looks like for music, because it's continuing. There's going to be names out there that I showed you today that could be listed with the greats. Are there any questions? Yes, ma'am. I know that you can see Little Richard's influence in a lot of music. Well, just right there in Lloyd Buchanan, you can see how from sitting down and playing an instrument that requires you to sit down for the most part, that you can still lead the band and lead the crowd and get everybody hooping and hollering and having a good time. And that's exactly what Little Richard could do. Um, I've never really studied his life as much as I wish that I have, and I need to. But I know it's a mess. I know it's a mess. And it may not be appropriate for this arena, but he's just one of the so many that helped form rock and roll in general, and then form what we have. Like without Little Richard, would you have Coldplay, a piano-based rock band? I don't know. He might be the reason for. He's definitely. You could probably draw a line from it. Any other questions?
You can pick one local artist that plays on a regular basis. Who would you go see?
Oh boy, I want to go see them all.
I know you do.
I want to see everybody. Well, okay. I'm a huge fan of Pony Bradshaw. That's why I included him. I saw him at the Earl back in December, and it was sold out. It was absolutely fantastic. But Eddie Ninevolt for me he's so good. So I saw him at the Tabernacle. He opened for a lady named Grace Potter and really brought the house down. But before that, it was last spring, I saw him at Grant's Lounge in Macon, which is historic. Grant's Lounge is where the Allman Brothers used to play. They set up shop there at Grant's Lounge. And because Eddie Ninevolt's from McDonough, his mom and his grandma were dancing right there in front of me. His grandma introduced him on stage, and then she came down and we were standing right there and dancing with her. And so that's a guy that I don't want to miss when he's around. So right now I'm partial to him. Yes, ma'am. Yes. Oh, you, yeah. Mm-hmm. So I got a chance to talk to a band called Fushi's Forecast. Fushi's Forecast is a group of young men. It's basically a collective, is what it is. So it's two guys, and then they bring in friends, and they bring in other musicians. And they are jazz trained musicians that play jam music with lots of improvisation, improv, and kind of going off script and things like that. They told me that, so the main guy, John, studied at Georgia State, and he said that there's a really great jazz community there at Georgia State and in downtown Atlanta. Personally, I don't know the venues where they are, but he said downtown Atlanta has a strong jazz community. And he told me that you could go every day of the week and find a pickup show to play with, and they can go in because they all know each other. It's not a big community, and they can go in and sit down and have some fun. So I don't know if that helps, but you can poke around and ask. And Clark Atlanta has a wonderful radio station too. Yes. I get it. Yes, ma'am.
I can answer her.
Okay.
Castle has a stage jazz series that's on the third Sunday. The High Museum has jazz on the third Friday.
Yeah.
And First Congressional Church has jazz on the first Friday. It starts back in February.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
What's the best arena or event place where's the best place to hear music?
So there's a lot. There's a lot. I mean, the Fox is gorgeous. Fox is incredible. And if you're going to a bigger show, yeah, the Fox is fantastic. But if you want a small, intimate show, Eddie's Attic is one that you can't miss. So Eddie's Attic in Decatur. What I like about Eddie's Attic is it is a listening room. So they discourage talking in the crowd, and they make an announcement before the shows that this is a listening room. We don't talk. If you're carrying on a conversation, go outside. So I like that a lot. It makes it very intimate. There's another venue in Milton called Matilda's. And it is an outdoor venue where they have this little mini house it's behind a restaurant. And they've got this mini house and you're kind of in the woods, and they have tables set up there, and you can bring a picnic lunch or picnic dinner and your drinks, and you sit and you listen to the music play on the porch. I saw Pony Bradshaw play there. That's a great venue. A nice medium-sized venue is Terminal West in Atlanta. Terminal West sounds really good. It's a really good sounding room. Vinyl at Center Stage is a really nice medium-sized venue. There's a handful around, and then you have Variety Playhouse, which has been around for a long time, and it sounds great. Sitting up on the balcony of Variety Playhouse is actually a really great place to see a show. Again, Grant's Lounge in Macon is worth the visit. They always have really good talent, and it's a historical space. You kind of feel it there. And the same thing in Macon, the theater. I think it's the Capitol Theater now. It used to be the Cox Theater. It's like a mini version of the Fox. It's in Milton. Yes, ma'am. Oh, City Winery.
Yeah.
You know, I've only been there for one event. I've never, it was just like a company Christmas party. I've never been there for a show. I've heard good things about it, and they bring in some really good names. One thing I like about that at City Winery is they bring in people for like multiple nights or multiple shows, like 2 shows a day. So yeah, that's definitely one to check out too. Any other questions? Or they got live or dead? Elvis. It's Elvis. Yeah. Yeah. It's if they're alive, I don't know. The people I'd want to interview that are alive would be too intimidating, I think. So I'm a big fan personally of Jack White, who is of the White Stripes. But I think he's too smart for me. I don't know. Hmm. So I got to interview a band from LaGrange called Thoughts Are Nuclear, and they're an alt rock band. They're all in their 30s or something, and I asked them about success and why they keep going. And now these are guys with regular jobs. 2 of them work at the Kia plant out in West Point. And I asked them, like they see music as their therapy and they see music as a chance for them to put something good in the world and to help people maybe through something. And I made that point to them and I asked, I was like, are you ever going to stop? And they said, no, we'll die trying to get famous. And it was very humbling to hear this from a band in such a crowded space, in a space where they're probably never going to be superstars. They might be, but they probably won't be. They may be able to be working musicians and working class and make that their full-time job. But they're people who just wanted to put good into the world. And I think that that's very wholesome. And I think it's a great thing that there's artists out there that don't want to do anything but help. And if their pain, their personal pains can help people, they're happy with it. So that was an interesting answer from somebody. I'm glad y'all had me today. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so again, thank you, Jeremy. That was a great presentation. I learned about even more bands than I've got on my list that I'm gonna have to check out. Before we leave today, I want to let you guys know about some of the stuff we've got going on here at the archives coming up. February 1st through the 3rd, our African American Symposium will be going on. It'll be a 3-day event focusing on higher education, archives, and genealogy. So we're really excited about that. Information, we just put the brochure on our website, which is georgiaarchives.org. So program information is online about that. Our next Lunch and Learn is Michael Thurman. He'll be talking about his book, James Oglethorpe, Father of Georgia, and that's on February 9th. And then we just opened our newest exhibit downstairs. That's from Gavel to Archive. So it's a focus on Georgia's legal records. That just opened up downstairs behind the welcome desk, and it'll be going on through April 6th. So we'll try and put Jeremy's presentation up on our YouTube channel next week. So please check that out. If you wanted to mark any of the artists Jeremy talked about, it'd be a great way to go back and take a look at those. And then we always include everything we're doing upcoming on our Facebook page. So of course, if you're looking for more info about the archives, check it out there. And again, thank you guys for coming today. Everybody, please be careful going home with the weather. I know it's not great outside, so thank you for being here. Thanks.